My name is Sarah, and this is my story. I was born into a very poor family. We lived in a small broken house at the edge of a village. During the rainy season, water leaked through the roof, and during winter, the cold winds came through the cracks in the walls. My father worked as a laborer, and my mother cleaned other people's houses to earn a little money. There were days when we had only one meal to share among the whole family. I remember watching other children go to school with clean uniforms, while I wore the same faded clothes for years. Even though life was difficult, I dreamed of a better future. As I grew older, I worked wherever I could. I washed dishes, helped neighbors, and stitched clothes late into the night. I wanted to support my parents and escape the poverty that surrounded us. When I turned 22, a marriage proposal came from a wealthy family in the city. Everyone said I was lucky. "Your life will change forever," people told me. And honestly, I believe them. The wedding was beautiful. For the first time in my life, I wore expensive clothes and jewelry. I thought my struggles were finally over. But I was wrong. Very wrong. The moment I entered my husband's house, everything changed. The smiles disappeared. My mother-in-law treated me like a servant instead of a daughter-in-law. Every morning, I woke up before sunrise. I cleaned the entire house, cooked for everyone, washed piles of clothes, and worked until midnight. No matter how hard I tried, nothing was ever enough. If the food was slightly salty, I was insulted. If I sat down for a few minutes, I was called lazy. If I became sick, nobody cared. My husband never supported me. Instead, he always took his mother's side. One day, I accidentally dropped a glass while cleaning. My mother-in-law shouted at me for nearly an hour. She called me useless and reminded me that I came from a poor family. Those words hurt more than anything. But that was only the beginning. Months passed, and the emotional abuse became worse. Sometimes my husband would ignore me for days. Sometimes he would insult me in front of relatives. I would cry alone in my room every night, wondering what mistake I had made. Then I became pregnant. I thought a baby would bring happiness into our lives. Instead, my suffering continued. Even during pregnancy, I was forced to do heavy household work. I often felt dizzy and exhausted, but nobody cared. One afternoon, I fainted while cleaning the kitchen floor. When I opened my eyes, my mother-in-law's first words were not, "Are you okay?" She said, "Stop pretending and get back to work." At that moment, something inside me broke, but I stayed silent. For my child. A few months later, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. The day I held him in my arms was the happiest day of my life. He became my reason to survive. Whenever I felt hopeless, I looked at his innocent face and found strength. But the abuse did not stop. My husband spent little time with us. He was often angry and cold. My mother-in-law constantly criticized my parenting. Sometimes I would stay awake all night with my baby while tears rolled down my cheeks. I felt trapped, alone, forgotten. One evening, after a long day of work, my baby started crying because he was sick. Instead of helping, my husband shouted at me. My mother-in-law joined him. They blamed me for everything. As I stood there holding my crying child, I realized something. If I stayed in that house, my son would grow up watching his mother suffer every single day. I couldn't allow that. That night, after everyone went to sleep, I packed a small bag. I picked up my baby. I looked around the room one last time. Then I walked out of the house. I had no money, no plan, no certainty about the future. But for the first time in years, I felt free. The road ahead was difficult. I worked multiple jobs to support myself and my son. Some days were hard, but at least nobody insulted me. Nobody controlled me. Slowly, I rebuilt my life. A few months later, I filed for divorce. It was one of the hardest decisions I had ever made, but it was also the best decision. Because peace is worth more than wealth, respect is worth more than luxury, and freedom is worth more than a mansion filled with pain. Today, I live a simple life with my son. We don't have everything we want, but we have something much more important. We have peace. We have dignity. And every night when my son smiles at me, I know that leaving that house was the right choice. My journey taught me one lesson. Never stay where your soul is being broken. Sometimes walking away is not weakness. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. And that is my story.